Hello, welcome to the next story of the Jesse Tree, where David is crowned king. Now, we pick up the story of David a few years later. If you recall, David was just 12 years old when the prophet Samuel came to him and said, God chose you to be king. Now, can you imagine that? David, 12 years old, would be like, what, dude? Okay, boomer, whatever. That's absolutely nuts, right? But here's what happened. A few years later, Goliath, who was a giant, came to threaten Israel and the people of Israel. And they were getting ready to battle, but David, with a simple stone and his trusty slingshot, was like, okay, guys, I got this, here we go. And he slayed Goliath, the giant. Now, Saul was king of Israel, and he had some problems with David. He was a little jealous, right? But at this time, Israel that we know is divided into two kingdoms, Israel and Judah. So David was crowned king of Judah, and he ruled over Judah for about 7 years until Saul died. And then here's what the Bible tells us happened. All of the tribes of Israel came to see David at Hebron. And now Hebron is right here in the middle of Judah, okay? So all the tribes of Israel came to see David at Hebron. They said, we are your own flesh and blood. In the past, Saul was our king, but you led the men of Israel on their military campaigns. And the Lord said to you, you will be the shepherd over my people Israel. You will become their ruler. All the elders of Israel came to see King David at Hebron. There, the king made a covenant with them in the sight of the Lord. They anointed David as king over Israel. Now, David was 30 years old when he became king. And now he became king of both Judah and Israel. And David ruled over both those nations for 40 years. David is considered to be the greatest king in the history of Israel. He's also considered to be the father of Israel, similar to the way George Washington is the father of the United States. So, obviously, the symbol for the Jesse Tree with this episode is going to be the crown. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a good one. Bye-bye now.